With all this talk of beast snagger boys, some people were a bit concerned that the standard boys might be getting left behind. It seems that that's not going to be the case, as standard boys now are Toughness 5 and have AP-1 choppers. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, the strategy-focused 40k channel, where today we're talking about some more greenskin previews, and some very big and quite interesting changes that were coming for the codex shown off in the new Warhammer community preview. Two incredibly major buffs for the standard orcs here, and also a few other bits and details, including the stat line of the new beast snagger boys. Plenty to talk about, so let's jump straight into it. So I'd say for me, the headline news today is that Orc boys are going to be a standard of Toughness 5. That's really quite a big deal when you can feel them as an enormous horde of boys. It's just going to make an Orc battle line so much harder to shift. I guess greenskins are particularly resilient in the background. It's surprising that they're even more tough than a Space Marine, though I suppose Marines do have an extra wound now, making them probably a bit tougher overall. Still though, Toughness 5 is an enormous buff to the standard stat line. In particular, it's an amazing buff against anything that's Strength 4. Things like bolter shots, which are absolutely everywhere in the 41st millennium, will just be pinging off these guys quite often now. For example, if you were firing 10 Space Marines at Orcs with rapid firing bolt rifles, typically you'd be expecting around 6 or 7 Orcs to kick the bucket. Now they're only going to be wounding on 5s rather than 4s, they get a 50% durability increase. And now after that you're going to be expecting more like 4 or 5 dead Orcs as opposed to the 6 or 7 previously. I can't help but think that this is going to be helpful for the foot-slogging Green Tide. Being exposed to all of the horrendous firepower that's out there at the moment can be a bad thing, but now just losing flatly less Orcs to enemy firepower really is going to be handy. Of course it won't affect literally every firepower that you might encounter. Guard lasguns are going to be just the same power as is anything strength 6 or 7, but it's a really handy buff against virtually anything else. It's quite funny to think that even las cannons would only be wounding Orcs on a 3+ now. It does seem that Orc boys are still 8 points in the recent chapter approved, though I wouldn't say that that's necessarily confirmation that they're going to remain so in the new Orc codex. We don't really know what order they were planning on releasing the Orcs in, so it might have been that chapter improved was supposed to be out before the Orc codex dropped. We really are going to have to wait for the actual codex for some final confirmation. In any case, with Toughness 5 and Choppas getting AP-1, I wouldn't be surprised to see a small points bump, but who knows, things like the core AdMech troops got massive buffs and even managed to go down in points. I would expect that Orc Knobs will also get this change. It's hard to imagine them being less tough than standard Orc boys, so Toughness 5 with 2 wounds is going to be nice to chew through. And they also casually mentioned that quite a lot of other Orc units will be getting the buff as well. If bikes retain their usual +1 toughness, that would make things like Deathcopters or war bikes to Toughness 6, and that's going to be pretty handy against quite common heavy bolters. They even said that Gretchen are going up a point in toughness, so those weedy grots are going to be going up from Toughness 2 to Toughness 3 now. I guess if they're going to absolutely refuse to cost anything less than 5 points in the game of 40k, Gretchen would need to have a buff of some kind. Toughness 3 would make them a little bit more resilient to things like Strength 4 or Strength 3 firepower, but they're still going to be quite easy to remove. Of course, the other major news is that the Orc Choppers are going to AP-1 from AP-0. They still keep their +1 attack, so you're still going to be getting a whole flurry of them with Chopper boys, and it just means that high armoured units, things like Custodians and Space Marines, just can't really laugh off Orc melee quite as much as they could before. They get 3 attack space with a Chopper, though we don't know whether they're going to retain that extra one that they get for being in squads of 20 or more. Quite a lot of those rules have gone the way of the Dodo in 9th. In any case, that's another very solid buff to Orc melee. Some armies won't care about it all that much if you're fighting things like Drakari with poor saves, but against anything with a 3+ armor save, that's actually a significant boost. That's 50% more damage against powered armored targets. Maybe power claws and things might not be quite as necessary. Maybe we'll be able to just drown enemy targets in weight of attacks. Next up we have the profile for the beast snagger boys. I was wondering just how much they were going to deviate from standard Orc boys. Their models just looked that little bit beefier, and Games Workshop had all but confirmed that they were going to be Strength 5 by now. It does seem from looking at the new profile that is the only difference. They're Strength 5 and they gain this Beast Snagger special rule that I've written down here below. It really does look like Beast Snagger boys and standard Orc boys are going to be competing for a battlefield role. It's really going to come down to the points differential between the two, whether or not Orc boys are going to be worth it over passing up a 6+ invul save and Strength 5. Going from Strength 4 to Strength 5 is quite a buff in Warhammer 40k. It means that you'll be wounding common targets like Space Marines on 3s or other Orcs on 4s now. It's pretty handy for even tangling with very heavy targets as well, meaning that even you'll be wounding things like Leman Russ tanks or Imperial Knights on a 5+ rather than a 6. We don't know the points for the Beast Snagger boys, they weren't in chapter approved, which is one of the things that makes me think that the Ork Codex was initially planned to be released after chapter approved was. In any case, we do have this new Beast Snagger rule previewed as well. This looks like it might be a generic one that's common to all the Beast Snagger units that are coming out alongside the new decks. You get both an offensive and a defensive buff out of it. The damage buff is that you get +1 to hit with vehicles and monsters, both at range and in melee. Weirdly enough, that will make Beast Snagger units shooting at vehicles really quite good shots. Getting +1 to hit when you're only ballistic skill 5+ is really quite a big deal. The melee buff will be nice as well. If we can get any Beast Snagger units with power claws and things, that will be particularly nice for modifying any -1 to hits. The other part of the buff is that you get a 6+ invul save as well, and that's really quite a nice upgrade when you only have a t-shirt save anyway. We're seeing more and more things get an extra AP-1 in 9th edition, such as these Ork Choppas, but also things like generic melee weapons such as the Drukhari Witches for example, or the Plague Knives for Plague Marines. Getting a 6+ invul at least guarantees you a very small save against anything, whether it's a las cannon or it's an AP-1 weapon. They did mention in a previous preview that this special rule would in some way stack with the Snakebite clan. In the previous codex, the Evil Sons got a speed boost on their vehicles, and any speed freaks got a slightly bigger speed boost. Snakebites currently have a durability buff in the Ork Codex, a 6+ feel no pain. If they're saying that they need some sort of special rule to stack with this rule, then it kind of implies that the Snakebites themselves might be the ones that have the invul save now. They might have stolen it from the Death Skulls. I don't know how Games Workshop might think about combining two 6+ invul saves. Maybe the Beast Snagger units might really win out and get a 5+ invul save from having both rules. All complete conjecture at this stage though, they could just have the 6+ invul and a 6+ feel no pain on top of that. Finally, we have a few more weapon previews here, the Chopper, the Big Chopper, and the new and improved Huge Chopper. As we know, the Chopper is AP-1 and damage 1 and +1 attack. Going to be really nice to use that on Ork boys and make the standard boys a lot more threatening, and if shooters haven't seen any sort of similar buff, either firing more shots or getting a better AP, it might swing the balance and make Chopper boys a bit more appealing than them. The Big Chopper would appear to be staying the same, good and reliable and usually a good choice on knobs. Certainly nothing wrong with hitting at strength 7 and damage 2. And then apparently this Huge Chopper is the one that's carried by that Ork war boss in mega armor. Strength +3 should see that this guy's wounding at everything on a 3+, swinging with a mighty strength of 9. AP-3 is plenty to choose straight through any high save targets. The only slightly weedy thing is the damage characteristic of 2. I think I would have hoped for a damage 3 weapon on that, with just how big it is. Plus damage 2 isn't quite what it used to be in 40k these days. There's just so many units that have -1 damage, like Death Guard or Dreadnoughts for example. On the plus side, I think it should mean that the warboss in mega armor at least should maybe be a bit cheaper. He could still be an absolute steal and a big asset to the Ork army if he is pointed appropriately. I kind of hope that they have some sort of crazy relic version of this Huge Chopper as well. They did that for the Skitarii Marshal when he came out, gave him a couple of unique bits of kit that he could be upgraded to. I think a damage 3 version of this could be a great option for an Ork relic, make a really fighty warboss. So those are some pretty crazy changes for the Ork army there. Let me know what you think about Toughness 5 Orks down in the comments. Is it making you feel the need to revive a Greenskin Horde? I certainly feel there's a decent chance that my Ork boys might be seeing the table again in the near future. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Orsbet's Tactics, where I'll certainly keep the 40k videos coming, with news of Games Workshop releases whenever they come out. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I'd just like to mention that Orsbet's Tactics has a Patreon page, which is down in the video description below. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits every month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support me make videos, a link is down in the video description below. In any case, an enormous thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you gits next time.